Dune Part 2 is the best romantic film of all time. The protagonist is an heir to a throne riddled with controversy and lies. But somewhere, somehow, in the midst of all this madness, he found himself a princess. Dune is such a good love story, it might be better than Cinderella, Pocahontas, and maybe even Romeo and Juliet. Dune is a top tier love story, said nobody ever. But this movie is about a lot of things. The one thing I really like about this film, other than Zendaya being in it, is the fact that it's a stern warning. We've all heard it before, not everything that glitters is gold. Paul is the perfect example of a false prophet who starts to believe their own delusion. A tale of what happens when the boy who cried wolf gets confronted by the entire pack. But at the same time, this film is a cautionary tale of what happens when desperate people do desperate things. Let me explain.
The Big Dipper.
In Star Wars, Luke comes to realize that he's the chosen one. Originally, everyone believed that his father Anakin was the one who was meant to bring balance to the Force, but it turns out Qui-Gon Jinn was absolutely incorrect. Skywalker internalized this for years and became arrogant. His pride clouded his judgment. He became so conceited that he ended up breaking Jedi code and getting this cougar baddie pregnant. He was strong and gifted, but he lacked humility, which essentially drove him down the path of rage. He became so furious that he ended up murdering his wife. Now Paul, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He's not really gifted at much, he's weak, he lacks proper discipline, but just like Anakin, he believes he's capable of so much more, which isn't a bad thing. The Fremen are a pretty hopeless group of people. When we're introduced to them in the first film, they're practically slaves. They've been oppressed and they're pretty isolated. But they've been told for a while now that there's going to be someone who takes them to paradise. Some people believe in this prophecy, others don't. This on its own has a lot of religious connotations. I don't need to explain it any further, I think it's pretty obvious. Paul is basically a symbol of hope. The one thing about hope is this: anyone can be hopeful of something taking place. Often the ones who have the most faith are the ones who have lost too much and have reached the point where they have everything to gain. So the one thing that they can count on that costs them nothing is simply to crave for the best outcome. Like, what can possibly go wrong? It not coming to fruition, cause why on earth would that happen? I think the burden Paul carries is one that's truly troublesome. The Fremen can't see what Paul sees, and in the second installment of the film franchise, we as the audience start to see Paul's doubt grow and morph into delusion. He went from being fearful of maneuvering on the planet to asserting his dominance purely off of false confidence. That's pretty impressive, but also extremely scary. Paul's ego is basically reaching new heights simply because he has nobody to bring him back to reality. He's the only one who really knows the extent of the visions he's been having. The sea of red he's been haunted by because he knows there's a high chance he might fail and have bodies stacked on another like Tetris. So maybe I told a little bit of a lie earlier. Maybe Anakin and Atreides are more similar than different. The difference though is Anakin received backlash from those above him. Yoda denied him the rank of Jedi Master because he saw darkness in him. Paul doesn't have anyone questioning his authority, it's the opposite. Every time he does something, this guy loses his mind and gets a hard-on because he believes any event Paul does to be a part of the prophecy. I'm sure if Paul was a part of the alphabet community and he asked this guy to get on his knees for some sloppy toppy, he'd gladly oblige and be like, as is written. I don't know, that's what I just imagine would happen. I think the ladies who are very scary are very good at selling, and sometimes selling a dream to the right person can be a very deadly thing. You know, it's actually quite concerning how you can sell someone a dream as long as they're willing to buy it. The thing with dreams, people are always willing to purchase them at a full price. Like, just look at Paul. He has nothing much to live for, but the minute his mom told him these women think he might be the chosen one, he had a paradigm shift. Can't blame him. Who doesn't want to be told that they're destined for greatness? I'm not going to spoil the franchise in its entirety, but from what we saw in the second installment of the film, it's revealed that the ladies have been carefully constructing a narrative about this so-called Messiah. So it really begs the question, who's a fool and whose delusion is warranted? Like, I mean, they've been feeding Paul lies for a hot minute now, but since he doesn't know that this prophecy is one long convoluted tale, who's in the wrong, you know? Paul's journey is a reminder that false confidence can take you to places you didn't expect and let you accomplish things you didn't know were possible. But as we all know, too much of a good thing is sometimes bad. Depending on how much you digest that same delusion, you might end up drunk off of power, which is the trap the protagonist is falling into, which is a one-way ticket towards a downward spiral. Dune is basically the modern man's Icarus. Let me leave you with this law from the 48 Laws of Power. Law number 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Dune Part 2 is a tale about one thing and one thing only, when false gods become too confident.
Please check out the socials to keep up with the channel. The owner of the channel would appreciate it a lot. See you in the next one. Mwah.